I'm Nora O'Din, and we are coming on the air with breaking news from the federal gun trial of Hunter Biden, the first child of a sitting U.S. president to face criminal charges. The jury of 6 men and 6 women have reached a verdict after deliberating for roughly 3 hours over 2 days. We have learned that he has been found guilty on all 3 counts. Hunter Biden was charged with 2 felony counts for lying on a form, required to purchase a firearm in 2018. Then there was a 3rd charge, also a felony for being in possession of a firearm while abusing or being addicted to drugs.
Guilty on all 3 counts for the president's son. The president's son, Hunter, could face a prison sentence when this case goes to sentencing, likely later this year. The 3 charges all involved a gun he bought in October 2018, a gun the feds say he bought knowing he was a drug user, knowing he was addicted to drugs and therefore illegally, and for filing a false statement on the background check form when he didn't mark that he was a drug user or drug addict. The defense in this case, especially in closing arguments yesterday, tried to hinge its arguments that Hunter Biden may have been in recovery or getting sober in October 2018 and therefore didn't knowingly violate the law. That argument did not sway the 6-man, 6-woman jury from Wilmington, Delaware. And it's noteworthy, as Hunter Biden walked back in the courtroom a few moments ago, this day has been a singular day for Hunter Biden. Previous days, his whole family was here. The First Lady was here. His father, the president's sister, was here. Today, it's Hunter Biden in the courtroom learning his fate at the defense table with his attorney, Abby Lowe.
This is him walking in with his wife earlier today. My understanding is that each of the 3 counts has a maximum fine of $250,000 and that Biden faces up to 25 years in prison. But it's also my understanding that first-time offenders don't get anywhere near that. What do we know?
Yeah, the federal sentencing guidelines are going to be calibrated between now and the sentencing date. We're waiting to learn the sentencing date. We could find it out in a few moments. Could be early to mid-fall of this year. Federal sentencing guidelines will likely be calibrated to account for Hunter Biden having no criminal record, for having no federal felonies in his past, for a case that often gets pleaded out and doesn't go to trial. The same judge who heard this trial, Mary Ellen Noreika, a Trump appointee to the bench, will determine his fate at sentencing. But yeah, this is a federal firearms felony. It carries the risk or the prospect of prison time. First ever criminal trial of a sitting president's child.
A former president being indicted,
Donald Trump,
convicted by a jury, and now the son of a president. What is justice? How is it being applied? And is it being done in a way that is overtly political? Both sides will argue that, but now the country will see a former president and a sitting president's son both facing either probation or some kind of reckoning with the law.
Here, a standalone charge, owning and getting a gun if you're a drug addict without any other crimes bringing in here, whether it's a crime of violence with that gun. That's really unusual. We have 2 guilty verdicts. Now we're going to see 2 different types of appeal. Hunter Biden has some decent arguments on appeal. Well, what's interesting is that he's going to find a greater reception with some of those judges on the appeals courts who were appointed by former President Trump. They have
member of the jury. So as that verdict was actually read by the courtroom deputy, Hunter Biden stayed seated with his attorneys next to him. He was looking directly at the courtroom deputy. He distributed very little emotion. We didn't notice anything major, just watching as each guilty their verdict came down. And then after the verdict was delivered, he touched both of his attorneys, hugged them, his wife behind him after it was over.
About the reckoning his son has dealt with addiction issues over the years. The president is saying no pardon for his son.
Sentencing would be about 120 days from now. It's about 3 to 4 months after a guilty verdict that a sentencing hearing is held. 120 days puts you right in the heart of October. Incredibly rare for a defendant to be immediately what they call stepped back.
Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. It's likely Hunter Biden is going to appeal this verdict. And based on this case, what would be some of the grounds for appeal?
Well, I think one possible ground for appeal is a Second Amendment argument that he can basically argue thought the evidence was fairly overwhelming against them. And so the defense's best hope on appeal might lie in trying to persuade the Court of Appeals that this whole proceeding violated his right to bear arms.